In the late 1980s and into the 90s, Craig Hosking worked as a helicopter pilot all across Hollywood. Filming many famous scenes in movies such as Batman, Indiana Jones, and James Bond, he truly found his passion and worked in his dream job. Only 16 when he qualified for a helicopter license, he spent his early life doing exactly that and filming everything along the way. Being a helicopter pilot in LA for a few years brings us to 1992. Craig was hired as a pilot tasked with flying cinematographer Mike Benson and camera technician Christopher Duddy. Flown into Hawaii on a Saturday morning, the group was to film scenes of boiling lava for a movie called Sliver. Choosing the volcano of Kilauea, this was one of the most active volcanoes on the islands of Hawaii. The goal was to drop off the two men inside the volcano, then to spend the full day on Saturday recording a large plume of smoke, and the next day on Sunday they were to film a pool of glowing lava nearly 100 feet inside the crater. After taking off from the helicopter that morning, all was going according to plan on the first two passes through the volcano. Reaching the top of the rim and bringing the crew down into the 600-foot crater, only on the third low-level pass-through did the helicopter seem to lose power. A warning light then flashed on the control panel, but the malfunction was so sudden that the three men were instantly sent into a dense cloud of smoke. They were then headed directly for the center of the volcano. Emerging from the clouds only moments later, Hosking realized that he had to land the helicopter, and that escaping out of the volcano was out of the question. After fighting for control for the next couple moments, he was able to regain brief altitude and assess where to land. Knowing that he couldn't land too close to the pool of lava, the only option was to aim for a flat area close to the center of the crater. His plan was far from ideal, but he thought it might work as long as he could avoid the lava and the several large boulders in the field. Unfortunately, during the helicopter's rapid descent, the main rotor struck the crater wall and broke free from the fuselage. Hosking did manage to get the machine down to the ground in one piece, but the men were now stranded inside the volcano at least 150 feet below the rim. When they emerged from the crumpled wreck, they saw what looked like a scene from one of the disaster movies they helped create. The air was thick with fumes, and the sound from the molten rock bubbling up from the surface added to the fear in the air. All three realized that the gases surrounding them were extremely dangerous, including hydrogen sulfide and a toxin irritant called sulfur dioxide. These fumes are not only poisonous, but also highly corrosive and explosive. Even as fresh air seemed to be coming down from the rim, they all knew that suffocation was a very real prospect unless they got out of the volcano soon. Being that there was no rescue in sight, Duddy and Benson decided to scale the walls of the volcano in the hope that they might find a way out or to signal for help. They chose to leave Hoskins behind as he thought that he had a chance to fix the broken radio on board the helicopter. Duddy and Benson quickly found out that climbing the inside of the crater was a nerve-wracking challenge. Neither of them had any climbing experience, so progress was painstakingly slow. The fragile walls of the crater were crumbling underneath them, and any careless movements could easily start a landslide that would carry them deeper into danger. Treading very slowly and carefully, they made their way up the crater, but soon became separated. Stranded on ridges at least 60 feet short of the rim, the pair felt they couldn't move up any further, and they feared that backtracking down would be even harder. They decided the most sensible thing to do was to wait. Being higher in elevation, the air was much cleaner and easier to inhale, so Benson secured himself inside a narrow crevice until help arrived. Back at the helicopter, Hoskins was having much better luck. Working in the choking air, after several setbacks, he eventually fixed the helicopter's emergency radio and was able to summon help. Back on the ground, rescue crews knew that they needed another helicopter pilot to get the men, but only after a few calls did a local pilot show up, and within an hour he was warming up the engine on the town's rescue helicopter. Over the next hour, the pilot made his way into the volcano and landed cleanly next to Hosking. Realizing the two other men were stuck on the rim of the volcano, they knew rescuing them would be much more difficult. Back up top, as Benson was sitting in his hidey hole, Duddy chose not to wait and to push for the exit. Convinced he would die if he stayed in the crater much longer, he struggled up the rim, finding any way to get there. At one point during his slow ascent, he saw something coming down from above. A man-sized object suddenly appeared through the gaseous cloud before it fell past him, crashing to the bottom of the crater. Horrified, Duddy thought it was one of his companions falling to a violent death. In fact, it was proof that a rescue attempt was underway. The large object that passed him was a survival pack, thrown over the rim in a hope that it might land close to the men trapped below. Even though the incident badly unsettled Duddy, he did eventually reach the top of the rim at around 2:30 in the afternoon. Coughing and wheezing from the effect of the gas, he was finally safe. More than 24 hours into the ordeal, Benson was still trapped in the crevice and was beginning to suffer. Having lost contact with the two other men, his biggest fear was that he might be the only one left alive. This made him even more anxious about his chance of being rescued, and the sound of the volcanic activity below only unnerved him even more. Having eaten no food for about a day, he only had a single sip of water after he held his hands out in the rain, collecting just enough to wet his mouth. At one point, Benson started to hallucinate. imagining he could see the figure of Pele, Hawaii's spiteful goddess of volcanoes. He recalled several times seeing her reach out from across the crater, and he responded by getting to his feet and screaming at her to leave him alone. On the following morning, Benson was still trapped. As visibility was only getting better, it enabled the rescue crews to finally locate him from the helicopter. Knowing the approximate location, it was only on the third attempt where his location was confirmed and a rescue attempt could be made. Being too dangerous to get him with the helicopter, the crew decided to lower him a net at the end of a 150-foot-long cable, slowly maneuvered it into position, and after a few hours of work, Benson finally reached out and latched onto the net. By mid-morning on that Monday, nearly 2 full days after the initial helicopter flight, all 3 men were rescued. About a week later, Benson was still coughing painfully, but remarkably, he and the other 2 men suffered only a few minor cuts and bruises. Following an ordinary crash landing, this would have been considered an extremely lucky outcome. But after landing directly inside an active volcano, all those surrounding the situation recognized how this feat was nothing short of a miracle. That is the story of the Craig Hosking helicopter rescue. If you made it this far, please like, comment, and subscribe.